These are these are my seniors, and I have a couple that are in New York, so it's not the full class, and a couple from Merrimack that are not here, but and I think you already met Martha, who plans on going to Emerson next year. So a lot of them are already set on where they're going, but it's still going to be a great presentation for them to kind of see the different types of career that they can do once they graduate. So, you guys, this is Heather Hoglund, third block. She is a documentary producer, graduate of Emerson University, and the past two presentations she's done has been fantastic. The juniors really enjoyed it. Had a lot of good questions for you guys. She's going to play the 35-minute documentary she made and produced, and it's award-winning, right? I'm correct in saying that? Yes. Award-winning. You can call it that. Yep. Really well done. And a lot of the things that she talks about, we've talked about this in class, from lighting to pre-production to production to editing to planning, all this stuff. Everything that she has said, Mr. Beals and I have said it, if not once, multiple times, and it's always refreshing, because I have been removed from the business for quite a while now, so it's always refreshing when people from the industry come in and kind of reinforce what you're saying, because then it makes it makes me realize that I do know what I'm talking about. We do know what we're talking about when we say this stuff. So I'll turn it over to Heather. Ask lots of questions. Please be.
All right, so I'm going to show. So this is my senior thesis film. So there's an advanced program at Emerson called a Bachelor of Fine Arts, so you can apply for it, and that's what I went for. So in media, your Bachelor of Fine Arts project is basically you think of an idea and you make the project. So for me, my friend Matt and I entered the program together, and we thought of this idea. The largest dam removal that happened on the Elwha River in Washington State started a couple years ago. Began, and we wanted to kind of chronicle it, and we also wanted to tell the story of the Native American tribe that lives along the river that the dams are being removed on. So here was our idea, and we had a year to sort of make it happen, and so we turned it into this 35-minute documentary that I'm going to show you guys. But just real quick, where are you guys all going?
I'm going to American University.
Awesome. I did a summer program there. It's really cool. I love DC. Everyone else? Where are you going?
Hofstra University.
Hofstra? Awesome. Emerson.
Keene State.
Keene State? My brother goes there for teaching right now. You don't know yet? That's okay.
NCC.
NCC, cool.
Her and I are going to NESCOM.
Oh, nice. Awesome. What about you?
Possibly Keene.
Possibly Keene? Cool. Yeah, my brother loves it up there.
Yeah.
So, cool. Awesome. Okay, so I'll just show the documentary now. And then I'll just talk to you a little bit about how we made it, and you guys can ask questions. I know you guys are seniors and you already know what you're doing, so just feel free to ask me anything you guys want to know before you're on your way to college. So, all right, cool. Do you guys have any questions right off? Yeah.
What else has Matthew Love worked on?
He's done a bunch for a bunch of Emerson students. So he currently works at a small startup called Coach Up in Boston, and they do a lot with rising athletes. They make promo videos for rising athletes. Does the name sound familiar?
No, I just like his cinematography.
Yeah, he's amazing. I don't know really anything about cameras, believe it or not, even though I went to film school.
What did you study in school?
So I studied documentary production, and I minored in science, but I catered my production major more towards producing, so more away from the camera and more. I was in charge of a lot of the pre-pro stuff. I did also edit this. I was also the editor on the project, just because when I started in high school, I started as an editor, so it made the most sense to kind of keep being involved in editing. But my main passion is with organizing and producing, wrangling a team, setting up interviews, scheduling shoots and all that sort of stuff. So that's mainly the role of a producer on small projects like this. Yeah.
How did you, in two ways, how did you, obviously you found this project, who investigated all this research, how did you find this?
Yeah, good questions.
How did you get into just doing all that?
Yeah, so Matt is from Seattle, and he went to the Elwha River when he was in high school with his environmental science class, and they kind of talked about someday these dams might be removed, so he thought it was really cool. He was flying back to Emerson for a semester and was reading those in-flight magazines, and they had a whole spread on the fact that the dams were actually being removed for real, and it was going to be the largest dam removal project in, you know, American history. And he just thought that was amazing, and he's a super talented cinematographer, but just doesn't, like, just can't organize, like, just needs someone to kind of be the producer. So he approached me with it, and I mean, science documentaries are like right up my alley, so I told him, I was like, absolutely, let's make this happen. So from there, we kind of sat down and we thought, okay, well, what is our story going to be? Because you can't just say that the documentary is about the dam removals, because that doesn't really mean anything, you know? You had to really hash it out, get it out on paper. I call it word vomit, just like write anything out about anything that you can think of that you want for your project. And then we both did a lot of research. I was mainly spearheading, finding stuff. We read articles about it. I emailed a couple like Park Service people that were involved with it, and different sorts of things like that. And so we just kind of found out a little bit more information, and then we realized everyone was doing a documentary about this dam removal because it was just so big. So we thought, okay, so how can we make ours different? So that's when I started to look into the tribe and learned about their story and how they've been involved with the river for, you know, hundreds and thousands of years. So we decided to take it from that perspective. So then we started reaching out, you know, in the more cultural realm, and we had I had just a huge document of like copy and pasted information about this whole project, and then we started to create an outline from that, which is not really a script, just kind of like bullet notes of like, oh, this could be a cool story to like go with, or like, oh, here's a cool thing that, you know, we might highlight in the film. And then we started to develop more of a script. And then while we were doing that, we also thought, okay, well, this is going to cost money, so how are we going to do that as well? So we launched a Kickstarter campaign. We went for $8,000, and we actually got $12,000. And then we got an additional $5,000 from donors, just like independent donors, and we also won a grant at Emerson. So we got some more money there. But it kind of like all tumbles together in pre-production depending on, you know, when there are deadlines for certain projects. So for us, we just 2 days before the first, like, there was like a ceremonial chunk of dam that was removed from one of the dams, like an excavator. You guys saw it in the beginning. An excavator just goes in and like takes out the first chunk. But we wanted to catch that because that was going to be, you know, a super good way to open the film. So 2 days before, we actually decided to fly out. So a lot of it was like rough and tumble in the beginning. But for the most part, you should just do as much research as you can in the beginning and then start to actually like talk to people, because if you approach them and you know a little bit of background about what you want to make the project on, usually people are pretty receptive and like will get back to you. If you're not just like, hey, I'm some filmmaker, like this looks cool, can I film it? It's more like, hey, I was doing some research and I noticed that like for the next 2 years 2 dams are going to be removed on the river. I just think this would be a great thing for me to capture for this project that I'm doing, like, so that sort of thing. For documentaries, you don't really have a script because, you know, you don't know what these people are going to tell you on camera, and you don't know what's going to come up. But what we did was we created like a best case scenario script. So like, here's how we'd like the film to go. For us, the lawsuit happened after we started filming, so we were kind of rushing to try and figure out how to incorporate that into the project. So, but yeah, for the most part, it's just like gathering as much information as you can and then starting to hone it into something that's going to cater towards what you want to tell on film. So, yeah, good question though. Anybody else? So I just have a few, like, I put a few behind the scenes shots just so you guys got an idea of like how our shooting went. So after the pre-pro stage was over, so I was basically in charge of, you know, I made sure that everything was insured, that we had permits for certain locations to film in the national park. It's free for a small group like us, but you still need a permit in case a ranger stops you. You need to be able to show them that you've been in contact with someone. I ordered all the equipment and I scheduled the flights, you know, all the like mundane tasks that people think of, but super important because a film wouldn't happen without them. And that's mainly what the producer does. And I, oddly enough, really enjoy that. So, and that's a rarity at Emerson. So I had a lot of great opportunities on projects because everyone was like, oh, Heather produces, like get her to do it. Because everyone wanted to be on the camera. And that's not really what I wanted to do. But that's very rare for an Emerson student, I guess. So, yeah, so then, all right, so we booked the flights and now we're heading out, so you can go to the next slide. So this is our team, and this is what we looked like for the most part when we were filming, because we were just backpacking with all of our equipment, like constantly tired, sunburnt, like sleepy. So Matt is on the far left. So he and I got the BFA program, we got the degree together, a dual program. And then the guy next to him, his name is Frank, so he was our behind the scenes camera guy. So he was in charge of, I mean, we're still putting it together. Sorry, I'm just gonna get water because I'm gonna start We're still putting it together, but we wanted to design behind the scenes thing. Just to kind of show how we made the project, because not a lot of Emerson students got to go out west. In the middle is Isabel. She is our audio girl. We shot on DSLRs, so all the audio was recorded separately. So she just had like a big pack on the whole time with a microphone. That's me. And then Joe was another camera operator. So Joe and Frank were called our B-cam guys. So basically all that means is Matt was the primary cinematographer, and then they just did other shots while Matt was filming the primary thing, or during an interview they would have different camera angles. So we had 3 camera guys for the most part, and then 1 audio person. And then I was the interviewer when we were out on set. So I would be the one that, when we got to an interview, I would like make the person feel comfortable and chat with them, and I wouldn't touch any of the equipment because I had a team that just set it up for me while I was like dealing with the actual person. So, which was good because I don't really know the equipment that well. You can go to the next slide, thanks. All right, so this is what our camera setup primarily looked like. So we worked with Canon 5Ds and 7Ds, which are both DSLRs. So they're primarily still cameras, but you can shoot video on them. And then it's just tricked out to the max, big lens on it. That thing on the end is called a matte box. It just holds the filters. We had like different filters for the camera. We were shooting outside a lot, so we had to make sure that the sky wasn't blown out or like it wasn't too dark in the foreground. So that's what the filters are for. The thing that says Marshall on it is just a lens hood so Matt could see his shots, make sure they were in focus, and just so the light wasn't skewing what he was seeing. And then we had an onboard microphone, but we didn't use any of the audio ever. It was only coming from Isabel, but that was just used to sync it up. So. You can go to the next one. Sorry, I'm like getting over a cold, so I'm gonna be coughing a lot. Okay, so this is like a run and gun scenario. So Gordon's just walking along the ocean, and we just wanted to like capture him, just like not doing anything in particular, just kind of walking. So I'm actually chatting with him, but I'm not on camera. But it's just to make him look natural. So he's like chatting naturally and walking naturally. So I'm just having a conversation with him, trying to make him feel comfortable, while Joe's like in his face with a camera. So that's mainly what I did during like when we were shooting B-roll and stuff, was just trying to make it like as natural as possible. So, do you guys have any questions? Okay, cool. So this is like a typical sit-down interview. Very controlled environment. So there's 2 cameras. So Matt is primary camera, and that's Joe on his left. Joe has the B cam. And then, and so I'm asking questions. So what would happen during an interview is I would sit down and I would immediately start talking. That's Jamie. So I would just tell Jamie, we're just having a conversation. It's just you and I having a conversation. There's no camera. There's like, pretend there's nothing around you. And that's the best way to get a very natural looking interview, where they're not totally focused on the camera. She's always looking at me. She's never looking at the camera. And then we had a tap system in place so that the crew never talked to each other the entire time. So the taps would determine what I needed to tell her. So a tap and hold meant that we were getting to the end of the recording. So DSLRs only record for 12 minutes. So a tap and hold meant that I would just wait for them to wrap up, and then I'd be like, that was a great answer, we just need to pause to reslate the cameras. And then different amount of taps meant different things. Either that was a great answer, but you need to condense it because it's too long. That was a great answer, can we keep going with it? Or 1 tap meant there was an audio issue, like we picked up a car outside, or Isabel might have bumped the boom mic and she heard it in her headphones and she wanted to make sure we got that audio really well. So I would just say that it was a great answer, but that we needed them to redo it. So it just kind of took away from the fact that there were like 5 people in the room, like all around devices recording them. So it worked out really well. I mean, we've had a lot of success with it in other projects. So yeah, any questions about that interview setting? Cool. All right, you can move on to the next one.
Was that something that you came up with, or is that something that they taught you in school?
We kind of learned it in school a little bit. There was like some sort of, we like kind of learned the fact that you shouldn't, like the camera guy shouldn't just be like, can we just stop this for a second? Or like the audio person shouldn't speak up. I should be the only one talking to the interviewer or the interviewee. But we kind of took it to the next level, and we had like all these tap systems and stuff, but we showed it to our professor afterwards, and he actually uses it now in his class. So Okay. So, this is just the last controlled interview I wanted to show you for lighting purposes. So, I know you guys are taught the 3-point lighting system, and you don't always have to use 3 lights, or even like 3 points of light in general. So we have 3 points of light in this shot. There's a light behind her, you just can't see it. So that house was really dark. It was covered in taxidermy. There were just like deer heads and elk heads all over the wall. So it was super dark and it just felt very claustrophobic. So we opened the window and we used the natural light coming in as her fill light. So we still used like an artificial light for Key, but we used the light, and it was also just a smaller setup, and it was really easy to break down because we used a window instead of shutting the shade and using a third light. So that was really helpful. And then again, I sat off camera and just chatted with her while they were setting up. And she was like probably our most timid because she was our youngest one. She was 16 years old, and she was the youngest person that we interviewed. So she was a little like, I've never been on camera before. So I just like, joked with her and made sure I was just like always like peppy and in a good mood, and really got her comfortable in front of the camera. So, yep. And then I just added this to show like in the field. This is I was helping Isabel record audio from the elk. We stumbled across a herd of elk while we were driving one day. We were in the Hoh rainforest in Washington, which isn't like a real rainforest, but just came around a corner and there was an elk in the road. So we all jumped out of the car and followed it. And when we went into the woods, we came across like 20 of them. We ended up using some of the footage in the film. So it was cool because it was like a scenario where we weren't expecting it, but all of a sudden we stumbled across something and we were like, we got to film this. So it was like quickly, like my role is just to keep track of my team and all the equipment, and their role was just like to get the shot. So, but it worked out great. And then right after this photo was taken, the elk like turned around and looked at us, and we like really freaked out and we ran away because we were really close to it. I think definitely we were closer than that photo makes it look. We were probably too close. So yeah, then we ran away when it turned around. But it was pretty cool. It was cool to be up close to them. They're huge animals. So yeah, you can go to the next one. So I use this slide to talk about what a slider is. We were taking a time-lapse sunset when this deer like stumbled across our equipment and was like sniffing around, so we snapped that photo. But a slider is basically just like a big long track, and you can mount a camera on it. So that's actually just a tripod head that's mounted on that big track that you see, and that's pretty typical. There's 2 types of sliders. There's manual, and then there's one that's motor-driven. So the manual one, obviously you slide it yourself, and then the motor one you can set to different speeds. So time-lapse is just a bunch of still photos. So this one was set up to take a still photo, I think like every 1 or 2 seconds of a sun setting, and at the same time the slider was moving. And so it was getting a really nice setting sun with movement, so that was pretty cool. So we did a lot of that, and in a lot of like, obviously not this time, but a lot of times we were up there and we would just like roll out sleeping bags and sleep out under the stars while the cameras were going all night to get time lapse. So you see those star time lapses and the beach time lapses we had. We were all just like sleeping outside. So it was like a big camping trip, and we also filmed. So it was a really fun experience. So then I think the next one's can you just show them the rough cut? So then we got back from a bunch of trips. We did 6 trips. We had like all this footage. I filled an 8 terabyte hard drive. It was like full, which is too much footage, I think. But this was like almost the final cut, not quite. So basically what I did was I just had all this footage and all these different stories, and I just started with little vignettes, and I strung a bunch of mini stories together. So the example I use the most is Dick Goyne, the guy that you see. We see him in his house. He goes down to the river. He's kind of like a goofy old man. So I put his story together first. And basically I was just like, okay, so right now all that matters is Dick Goyne's story and nothing else. So I put together a story of him in his house, then him down by the river. Cool, so I have that chunk, and then I put it aside. And then like I moved on to that classroom setting you see where the professor, the teacher, Jamie, is teaching. So then I was like, okay, well, let me make a little story about this class and them learning this lesson. So I put that together, and then once you have a little things like that, then I started stringing them together and using ways to connect them. So like the montage you see with all the time lapses and the sun sets and then it rises again, that's an example of me connecting 2 little stories together that we had a hard time connecting in an obvious way. So we just kind of use like the passing of time to connect them. And then you end up with something like this. And we were fortunate enough, we had a professional colorist and a professional audio mixer for our films. So then what we would do is we'd send all the video to the colorist, and we sent all the audio to the mixer. And it's outside of this program. So I edited in Final Cut, but Emerson has a lot of Avid suites too. I wasn't familiar with Avid. And then there's also Premiere. So it gets sent off, and then it gets sent back to me as like 1 or 2 tracks, and then I lay them in again. So the Final Cut was only 1 track of video and 2 tracks of audio. Yeah.
How long did it take you to like review all your footage, edit all those vignettes, and do the whole editing?
The editing took a few months, but when I say a few months, it was like a few months of very, very long hours. BFA students get 24-hour access to the labs, and I was pretty much there like all day, every day towards the end. So I would say a few months, but what happened is we went out 4 times, and then when we were editing, we realized we were missing stuff, so we had to go out 2 more times. So I got like 75% of the cut done, before I went into like the real editing of like adjusting all the stuff and working with the colorist and everything. But what happened in post was, so I was the primary editor and Matt was the assistant, but because it was our project, we agreed that like editing decisions would kind of be jointly made. And that's kind of rare. In like bigger productions, there's an editor, and the editor takes direction from the director of the project, but because Matt and I were both the director and we now became the editors, it was kind of like we were the same people. So there was a lot of review between the 2 of us, and then we started working with graphics artists and stuff like that. So, but yeah, editing can take a while, and especially for this, because how we organized the footage was because we did different trips during different parts of the year. So we had a folder for each trip, and then within the folder for each trip, we had the day, like each day, and then within that day, we had what was shot that day. So that was an easy way for me to remember, like, oh yeah, on our big summer trip, we interviewed Dick going down by the river. Like, I'm gonna put that one together now, and I could access all the footage right there. And then if we ever shot like B-roll related stuff, we would just categorize it by what it was. Was it river? Was it mountain? Was it the ocean? And then that way we were easily able to find things. But then we shot like way too much footage, but we were noobs, so we didn't know what we were doing. So yeah, we have way too much footage, but no, it was good. So my one advice about post-production though was I didn't mind that I edited in Final Cut. It was the thing I was most familiar with. I wish I had known Avid or another program. And I know you guys had access to like different programs here, and that's fantastic. So if you are interested in getting involved in post-production with anything, is just get involved with all the programs that are out there, because you never know when you're going to get a gig that they only have an Avid suite. And it's just going to look really great if you're like, oh, no problem, I know that. So I kind of pigeonholed myself with Final Cut, but I'm hoping to not do too much more editing when I can start hiring an editor to do it instead of myself. So yeah. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
So you mentioned that you really weren't as into the equipment as you were into like the organizing, production sort of thing. Within, I know that's kind of a specific question, sorry guys.
No worries.
Within like the VMA major, were you forced to take like cinematography classes and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so, yeah, and that, I actually like struggled a little bit with my major, because I was just like, no, I really want to learn like the pre-production phase, and they were like, okay, well you should take, field videography, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it helps, because there's definitely been times where they're like, can you just shoot something and edit it for me? And it's like, yeah, I can, because I know the basics.
Yeah.
But like, I look at that setup I showed you with the map boxes, I'm like, someone else can handle that. Like, I can operate a camera if it's got like no gadgets on it. So yeah, you like go through particular courses. Emerson also still has a film. You go through film 1 and film 2, and you actually shoot on a Bolex with like film. I bypass that, and you're absolutely allowed to bypass that, but most people do it. So, but yeah, film's still a thing, but not so much for documentary. It's mainly digital.
As the next step in your like documentation career, like as you like progress, do people like reach out to you with projects they want to do, or do you reach out to people? Like, could somebody help you? Like, hey, I do this. Would you be interested in working with me, create something? Is that how that works? Yeah,
that's a good question. Someone actually asked that in the earlier block. So for me, I've been lucky in that a lot of people have approached me, but it goes both ways. So what happened with me was I did a project while I was at Emerson, and they really liked it, and they passed me along to someone else who was looking for a similar project to be done. So then I just got passed off to them, and then I started working for them to make a similar thing. But there's also been cases where I know of a company or even an individual that needs something made, and I'm like, oh, I would be the perfect person for this, because maybe they just need one person to just shoot something really basic, edit it, and then like put it on the web. So I would reach out to them. So basically what happens is like I have business cards that just say my name. I'm a documentary filmmaker. Here's my contact. Like leaving it pretty open and flexible. Like I'm willing to do anything you need media related, and then I approach them like you're applying for a job almost, because it essentially is a job. It's just like a contracted project. So that's a lot of what I do in Boston right now. And I have consistent clients. Like I have a company that I work for, you know, all throughout the year, and then I have other people that are more seasonal based or like project based. So sometimes I'm really busy with clients, and sometimes I only have one or two.
If you did another big project like this, like if somebody reached out to you and said like, I'd love you to do this, like can you do this for me with blank thing? How does it work with the position of the person who wants it done and your position as the producer? Like how do you guys coexist? And
Yeah, that's a good idea. So it really depends if they're hiring you for your labor, then you're kind of like, you kind of have to, you might have some creative control, but they're probably the ones calling the shots. Whereas like with us, like we decided to do this project and then we went and self-funded it. So like we had all the creative control. So they would be your client. So if like someone hired me, so say someone hired me to do this project and I said, yeah, I'll absolutely do that for you. They just don't know how to make it happen, so I would be the mode to make it happen. But in the end, since they're my client, if they wanted this made a completely different way, I would have had to been like, okay, I could have probably had a conversation with them and tried to figure out like how it could have been made maybe a little differently. But for the most part, the clients, like they have a vision and they want something and they just need someone to make it happen for them. So you kind of become like an employee more or less for a client when they hire you. Not all clients are like that, but some of them are. So yeah, but good questions. Anybody else? No. Cool. You guys on spring break next week? Or April vacation? I forget what it's called. That's cool. Almost there. When's your last day of school?
Friday. Or last day of Friday.
Like ever?
Oh, I wish
For seniors.
June 6th?
It's actually June
Yeah, we get
3rd
out
if you
that
don't
late.
take finals.
That's so
June
late.
3rd, if you don't take finals, it's June 3rd.
If you went to GD though, they got out really early. I know people who go.
Yeah,
to
I remember when I was a senior, we got out in May. So in college, you get out at like the beginning of May for the year. It's great. And winter break is like a month long.
Yeah, Emerson's finals like next
So,
week.
these are just more general questions. So now that like you graduated with this degree, like so for like job seeking, what you do is like with a degree like this, you just like work for companies and like if a cool project comes along that's gonna hire you, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Do you stop or like is it less likely that you go and seek out your own projects? Like,
No, I'm always looking to get involved with. So I kind of have like a passion for like nonprofits in the Boston area. I've just had a really receptive, like they've just been really receptive to ideas that I have for them. Because a lot of times nonprofits have like a pool for making like promotional videos or something along those lines, but they don't know who to tap into to make it happen. So I've had a lot of luck with that. The only problem with contracting is it's just really inconsistent. So I've been a year out now as a contractor, and I'm actually kind of looking to land like one full-time job where I'm not like a mad woman like running around to all these different people. But it's definitely a great way to get started, because especially if you have the knowledge on how to make something happen and you have a reel coming out of school, and that's one thing. So do so many projects, like anything you can get your hands on, because you're definitely going to do some crappy projects, and it's okay. I have like plenty of projects that I was like, oh, I forgot I did that, or like, oh, I forgot I was involved with that project. But they're just so helpful just to learn things, and then when you graduate, you have a reel, and then you can start reaching out to people. So the contracting thing's a great way to get into it, because each project is usually temporary. You know, I work at a company, and it's pretty rare. I'm like they call me a permalancer, because I'm constantly working for them, but only when they have projects. And these other clients are kind of just like a one-time deal, and then I move on to another person. So it's definitely a great way to get involved and see like what kind of stuff you like working for. But like I said, it's kind of inconsistent. So yeah.
Would you ever like reach out and find your own thing you're interested in again and like try?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you should always be looking for your next project is basically the rule of thumb. So like I'm definitely looking to do something similar. Like another project like this where I can just plan and hire a team and all that stuff. So yeah, for sure, always be looking for something to do. Yeah.
From like, idea conception to the final product, about how long did this take? for you to make?
So, this took, it's still going. So right now it's in the film festival circuit. So it's like a full-time job. It's still a full-time job. So we're planning screenings. I just did a screening in Concord, New Hampshire, which is up, yes. And we're actually screening right now out in Seattle today. And so we're doing screenings and stuff. So it's still going. But the actual whole thing, it was 2 years. From the time we decided to do it and we flew out for the first time to when I hit export for the last time and saw it off was pretty much 2 years, which was kind of cool because the dams were done. So the first chunk came when we started the project, and the final chunk of dam was just removed in February. So that's kind of cool. So the timing on
It's
that.
actually really strange, but when I went to tour Emerson last year, I was thinking about doing the documentary production, and someone mentioned to me, I'm pretty sure they mentioned to me this project.
Oh, really?
They're like, oh yeah, there are people doing this thing with this dam.
It was probably us. So it was really well received at Emerson because a lot of BFA people just do Boston-based projects or film projects. So everyone kind of knew. It was kind of cool. It was a little celebrity status on campus because people would come up to me and they'll be like, I know we've never met, but I know you're doing that project on the dam. So, and it was very cool too because it was all environmental, and we actually linked up with a Berkeley composer. He did all of our music for us. So that's another cool thing about sometimes these media schools, especially in Boston because there's so many, they link up with each other. So Berkeley had a program that matched composers with Emerson kids that were doing BFA projects, and so that's how we met our composer. And then I linked up with a bunch, we had a guy that did all the writing for us, and he was getting a screenwriting degree at Emerson. And we had people that were getting graphics degrees that did animation for us, and a bunch of the artistic stuff for our DVD cover and whatnot. So yeah, it was definitely a whole collaborative process, and you definitely need a team that you work with really well. But it's also an individual thing too. So it was really
It's cool how everything kind of comes together like that.
Yeah, it was really neat. I mean, a lot happened for us too. Matt's dad is a pilot for Alaska Airlines, so we got out there for 90% off every time, which had he not been, we would not have been able to do the project because you guys know that flights are so expensive, and we had to fly 5 people out each time. So yeah, it was cool. So little things happened like that, and our Kickstarter campaign was super successful, which was amazing because there was a lot of failed Kickstarter campaigns from our peers, which was kind of sad, but we got our goal with 12 days left, so we went for more, and we got 12,000 instead of 8. So that was a good start to the project. We're like, oh, okay, this will be good. But we actually had a lot of pushback from our professors. A lot of professors didn't think that it was going to be a good story and didn't think that the Kickstarter campaign would be successful. So it was kind of fun to graduate and be like, ha. Because we won. Emerson has a really cool award ceremony at the end of the year. It's the student-run Oscars. I will say it's very cool, and it's not just because I'm an Emerson student. It is really cool. It's very much like a mini Oscars. And so this project won Outstanding Documentary in it. So that was a good start to its distribution. But projects last a long time. Just be prepared for that. I definitely wasn't prepared. It's still going. I'm like, oh god, I graduated a year ago. I'm still working on it. So yeah, but cool. Anything else? Are you guys excited to be done with high school? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. College is
Yes,
really
they
cool.
are.
College is great because your earliest class is going to be 8 a.m. I don't know, unless you go to a weird school, but yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. College is really cool. And it's not everyone thinks they're oh my god, it's so much harder than high school. It's not. It's it's still challenging, but it's not impossible. And I had a lot of fun at Emerson doing what I like to do. So, and savor it because it'll be over before you know it. I can't believe I already did 4 years, and now I'm out for 1. So, yeah, it'll be good. But yeah, anything else careers are you guys all going into media related things, or have any of you decided to go else? You're not. What are you doing?
Ask some questions.
Well, the thing is that if the reason I took this class would be for documentation, that would be the things I was most interested in. I'm going to school for international studies with a
Oh, cool.
concentration in international development. That's why I asked you the questions of how you link up with somebody.
Yeah.
Because when you do things like that, people make documentaries and things like that.
Awesome. American's a great school then.
Yeah.
Nation's capital. It's a perfect place to be. Yeah. So what I did in pre-production especially was I did a lot of research, and then I found good contacts. And I was dealing with an indigenous tribe, which I think is, gives me a skewed idea about this, but it takes a while to get to finally get that one contact. And I ended up getting in touch with a woman who works for the tribe but isn't a tribal member. And she was telling me, she was just like, yeah, I mean, this is going to take you a little while because you're going to have to gain their trust because, like, you're the white man. And that's still very much a thing. So, but just, you have to remain, like, you have to know your facts. So you have to do your research beforehand so you can be educated when talking to a person when you finally get in touch with them. And then just kind of, like, make it known that you know what you're doing. And for me, I was just, like, always super chipper, like, always smiling, and, like, if I mess something up, like, you know, apologizing profusely. It's just a whole, like, it's just like a whole relationships thing. Like, it's not, you're not just like a filmmaker. You have to be like a really friendly person and like really receptive to what they want or don't want and stuff like that. But yeah, the connections part is huge, and it's probably one of the most important to like getting a project done. So.
Do you think that working on projects like this in college kind of helped you figure out how to make the best connections with people?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this project alone has given me like half of the work that I do right now. And yeah, so it's very much like getting involved with people and meeting people on set, but also being able to like distribute a really good project and have people pick up on the fact that like, oh wow, they just graduated college and like this is their first project, you know, or something like that. So.
See, my fear is, and this is really bad, and they'll probably just when I say this, I get really bossy. Like I'm really bossy.
I do too. That's why I'm a producer.
Is it, so it's like, it's completely normal?
It's normal. You just have to learn how to not make it not bossy, but make it like.
That's my fear about college.
You're like, okay, so a producer is like the mama goose, so you just are trying to like wrangle all these things at once. But you're also a female, so I'm gonna say this. Like sexism in the industry is very much a thing, and I've already experienced it, which is horrible. But, so unfortunately, women get this bad rap that like, when they're like strong-headed and are like in charge of a project, they're like instantly bossy. But don't let. What?
Have you heard of the bossy?
No, I haven't.
There's a movement going on, and it's just like one of those like stop bullying movements, and it's for young girls to get rid of the word bossy because it's a stigmatism and something that people see.
Yeah, I like that because it's. I mean, yeah, I get bossy too, but I think I've learned how to train myself for it to not be bossy. Just like I'm making sure everything happens on time, and I'm making sure it happens, and. So yeah, I've been called bossy before, but I don't choose to look at it as bossy because I get shit done. Am I allowed to swear in high school? Okay.
They heard it before. Did you hear these guys? I think they would turn red.
What did the people in the film think when they saw the?
Yeah, actually, I'm bummed I didn't mention this in the two other blocks. So I was a little nervous. So West Coast is very different from East Coast. They're much slower paced. Things don't really happen instantly, and so we sent them a rough cut, but they just never got back to us about it. So we finished the film, and then we sent them the final, and I've just gotten nothing but, like, they've, like, showed it to their extended family. They were, like, bawling when I sent them a bunch of hard copies of the film, and everyone was crying, and they said they loved it. And so they actually, at the beginning of August, we're flying out there to do a series of screenings, and the tribe has actually asked us to come to their reservation and screen it for, like, the whole tribe. So, yeah, so we're pretty excited about that. Yeah, so, but it's just that whole idea of, like, I'll never forget that very first phone call when this woman was telling me, like, you're going to have to gain their trust, and, like, this is going to be really hard, and, like, I don't even know if they're going to let you onto their reservation till, like, we want to put together a whole screening, like, with everyone in the tribe, so just to see, like, how that's coming, like, all the hard work that we did have to put into it, but, like, how worth it was in the end, so it was really cool. So, yeah. Well, cool.
Any other questions? These guys have about 5 minutes left, so
Okay.
if you guys want to talk to Heather one-on-one, you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and thanks for having me.
To ask questions as a group.
So then how did you find her?
Was that?
Yeah.
How'd you find her?
Oh, her uncle is the board of ed.
Yeah,
He gave me her name.
Yep, my cousin
Which I'm
went
glad
there.
you did, because it's really been great listening to you.
Good,
especially
yeah, no,
after
I'm
we got
glad.
A chance to hear her for 3 blocks, so it's really great the questions that all the kids have asked.
Yeah, I think this is really helpful, honestly, for me, big time.
Cool. No, that's good to hear. Well, so I got my start in high school. I went to Groton, Mass, Groton Dunstable High School, and we had a really tiny studio, and I took videography, and I went in and I was just like, I think I want to get involved in film. Like I was like, I just don't want to be in front of the camera. And the first thing she did was she put me as a moderator on local access TV for a book club. I'd never read the book before. She handed me a sheet of questions and she went, here, go. So I kind of got thrown into it. So I did actually was the high school news anchor for when I was in high school, but then got involved in documentary slowly from that, and just got involved. We had a summer internship program with the cable channel, so I made 2 films that were really well received in Groton's community, because it was about trails to hike and run in Groton, and we're a really
It's so cute.
earthy, crunchy town. Yeah, it's cute.
It's cute.
Every time I go back, I'm like, oh yeah, there's nothing. Because I live in Boston now, so every time I go back, I'm like, wow, there was nothing out here. Your CVS closes at 9. Like, where's the 24-hour stuff? So, but no, it was definitely a good start. I had a really good high school program. I had a really good teacher too. She was a filmmaker herself, so she was really passionate about it. So it's kind of cool to come back to high school and like see you guys graduating, because that's where I was, and I was figuring my life out. It's scary, and it's also unfair that you guys have to decide. I just happened to I picked the right college, absolutely, and it was a phenomenal 4 years, and I'm so bummed that it's already over. So,
What schools did you consider?
so my second choice was Ithaca, but I could not. I drove up there to look at it, and on the drive I was just like, nope, can't do this. It was like 5.5 hours through cow country, and I was like, no way. But I almost went there. I looked at Marist College. I looked at Syracuse. I looked at, where else did I look? Fitchburg State. I got rejected from NYU. I got waitlisted and then I got rejected, but that's that's like Emerson's like rival school. The joke is that like all the rejects from NYU go to Emerson, but it's not really true. Yeah, I think those were I only applied to like 5, I think. So, yeah, but definitely made the right choice. But I did hate Emerson when I first looked at it.
Really?
Yeah, because I had this like romanticized idea of what college was, with like a sprawling quad and like people playing frisbee, and then I got to Boston and I was like, it's so noisy here, and like where's the campus? Because it's very, it's vertical, as you know. So.
I don't even want to be on a campus. Like, I can't imagine myself being on
Oh,
a
good, then you'll do great, because Boston's your
Never mind.
campus, which
Yeah.
is really cool. So yeah. But I did, so in high school I wanted to go into forensic science, so I did a forensic science camp at American University, and then was like, never mind. And then went into filmmaking. I'd always done filmmaking, so Santa gave me a camera when I was 14, and so I just started filming. I did spoofs of all the James Bond films with my neighbors. Did a bunch of horror movies, just some really goofy ones that are embarrassing to watch now, obviously. Yeah, but it's great because it's just like you started getting involved early. So even if those are like embarrassing projects to look back on, just know that they were like good experiences. So yeah.
Do you think going to Emerson with a little bit of experience gave you like more of a leg up, or do you have to go through the same thing? over and over?
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised. So I think, like, I was thrilled when I got accepted to Emerson, but like once I started working with people when I got there as a freshman, I realized like a lot of people came from high schools that didn't even have a video program. So you guys, like, just looking at this space alone, you guys are so fortunate that you had this set up in high school, because a lot of people don't, and they want to go to film schools and stuff, and some of them, their reels aren't that great, but they try anyway. So yeah, you guys had a good start. Cool.
Did you have to take classes where you like relearn stuff that you from high school?
Yeah, and a lot of the gen eds are annoying too.
Nah.
Yeah, but it's
At
alright.
least don't take math.
Yeah, I was so excited. Emerson so if you get a C or above all through high school, you never have to take a math class at Emerson ever. It's so great. So I haven't taken math since high school.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.